Okay, here's a little bit of an overview of my PowerPoints. I've provided the PowerPoints to you so you can look over them in detail, so I won't drone on for too long. This is to go over the Angela Davis, The Approaching Obsolescence of Housework, a working class perspective. It's a little bit of an older piece now, but I think its critiques are still relevant. And I also think it's a really nice way to introduce intersectional feminist theory. So I'll explain why. Okay, so a Marxist feminist question takes as a central category of analysis of women's oppression the fact that they do the majority of housework and that the capitalist system doesn't value domestic labor. So one of the questions, if we take domestic labor as one of the main reasons women are marginalized in society, we say, well, okay, is housework undervalued because it is unpaid, or is it unpaid because it is undervalued? So how does value get attributed to the work that we do, right? Because the way that work is valued is enormously powerful for how structures of oppression get reinforced. And another question, is housework inherently awful, or is it just awful under capitalism? This is where you have like the debate between all housework should be socialized. We need machines and robots to do it because no matter what, it's terrible. On the other side, we can say, well, actually, baking a cake and cleaning a floor and decorating your home is less alienating and potentially better for you as a human species being than working in an office, in a hierarchical bureaucracy and so on. So there has been a kind of feminist retrieval of housework that says this is valuable labor, this is beautiful labor, this is liberating, blah blah. I don't have strong feelings about that. And then the question is, what should a feminist approach be to housework if this is something that we spend a lot of time doing? It's responsible for a lot of social stratification. It's not going anywhere. It seems to be something that reinforces gender hierarchy. What do we do about it? I normally start off this face-to-face lecture by just asking people who has done what household labor today and how much of it. It's 10:50 right now. I've already made some packed lunches. I did a load of dishes. I folded a load of laundry already this morning. There's just so much work that goes into social reproduction that we don't see. And so what are we going to do about it? Are we going to pay people well for it? Or are we going to socialize it and make it, there were a lot of feminist theorists in the 17th and 18th century, 17th and 18th century, who basically said the only way to fix this domestic labor problem, to liberate women, is to live in communal homes where there are communal kitchens, because cooking takes so much time. So communal homes, communal kitchens, so that some women at least get to get educated and some women at least get to pursue artistic endeavors and so on and so on and so forth. That was the only way they could imagine getting out of the trap of social reproduction, which somebody has to do. Somebody has to feed, clothe, house, all of this kind of stuff. It all sort of needs to be done, right? But if you individualize it and make it a single person in a home, or a majority a single person in a home, that's a huge burden, is the argument. Let's go back to my gal here. Few tasks are more like the torture of Sisyphus than housework. With its endless repetition, the clean becomes soiled, the soiled is made clean over and over, day after day. Yeah. Have you ever heard the phrase, if you clean your bathroom every day, then you never have to clean your bathroom? I hate that phrase. Beauvoir doesn't think housework is going to be liberating for us. Sisyphus, of course, is the person tortured forever to roll a ball up a hill only to have it fall on the other side, and to do that for eternity. That's what domestic labor is. In domestic work, with or without the aid of servants, woman makes her home her own, has an occupation, an activity that deals with material objects, shining stoves, fresh, clean clothes, bright copper, polished furniture, but provides little affirmation of individuality. Such work only has a negative basis. Cleaning is getting rid of dirt, tidying up is eliminating disorder. Legions of women have only this endless struggle without victory over dirt, and for even the most privileged, the victory is never final. So the idea here is that instead of it being a kind of positive contribution, nobody's saying it doesn't make you feel good to have your house cleaned, right? That's not what we mean by positive. It's not positive emotions. We're talking about creation of value in the world through the expression of your freedom. And the idea is that just eliminating dirt is not an expression of being. It has a negative basis. It's one of these tasks, again, that goes to that position of the inessential. You're not transcending. Okay. I always like to pull this quote out because I really like to cook. Cooking has its rewards. It is a revolution in creation, and the woman can find a special satisfaction in successful cake or flaky pastry. For not anyone can do it. One must have the gift. Unfortunately, as with other housework, repetition soon spoils these pleasures. True. The magic of the oven can hardly appeal to Mexican Indian women who spend half of their lives preparing tortillas identical from day to day, century to century. Okay. Okay, so let's look in the housework. What is it? Who does it? What is it? For Marx, it's this idea of taking the products that we have to buy. We exchange our labor for money. We take that money to buy products, and in the home, a product which has exchange value, right? We exchange it for money, we exchange it on the stock market, gets turned into use value. So it's got value insofar as we can use it. So I buy a bolt of fabric, I make clothes out of it, I wear the clothes. That bolt of fabric no longer has exchange value. It only has use value for me. So the idea is that in the home, exchange value gets translated into use value, and that's kind of the role of domestic labor. If you really want to see a documentary, a nice documentary, it's older now. You can look up Marilyn Waring's Who's Counting. She does these time use surveys and sort of looks at the gendered tasks across the world and what kind of time people put into it. And it sort of looks at like women's time as multitasking time and in the home or whatever. I don't need to get too far into the Marx stuff. Angela Davis, housework is invisible, repetitive, exhausting, unproductive, and uncreative, right? So she is not going to ask that we return to the home and revalue this stuff as being a site of women's liberation. I already said this kind of stuff. So there is a bit of an issue in the Marxist theory of value in domestic labor, which is there's one aspect of housework, which is turning products into use. And then the other part of domestic labor, which is making people and caring for them, keeping them safe, investing unique and special attention in them so that they become future workers, I guess, the idea. And so how do you compensate for that? It's really difficult. I think it's best to understand Angela Davis's piece against the background of second wave feminism. Many of you will already know this, okay? So I don't think I need to go too deeply into it. But I want to set the stage for why I think using housework as a way into intersectionality and contemporary critical race will show us the imperative of that critique, the imperative of of every site of feminist analysis, making sure that it is making sure that it is not smuggling in the beliefs, interests, and values of a narrow group of women. Okay, second wave feminism was defined by, post World War II. The war's over, so women don't, quote unquote, have to work anymore, and so they're privileged to go back home. If they did go to work, that was very much in these secretary roles, teacher roles. Hang on to that question of who was working during this time. We'll get to the end in Davis's critiques. Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique was a very crucial piece of second wave feminist literature, where she talked about this. She interviewed a lot of housewives, so went through magazines, and sort of talked about how the idea was that to be a housewife was to be liberated, because you have all of these things that you can purchase, like a stove, a dishwasher, this or that, a cake mix instead of making a cake from scratch, and all this kind of stuff. And the idea is that they were sold this idea of equal but separate spheres. So what you're doing is as important as what the man is doing, or whatever. So she does the Happy Housewife Heroine. So what about her? Well, she loves housework. She loves being home. And she sort of saves everyone from the outside world by making the home this kind, soft place of respite, right? You can look into some of that. There's a bit of a Davis critique here already of the idea that a housewife is actually a status symbol, to have the wife not work. I think that's, probably true today. Which led to this thing called the problem that has no name. Women were supposed to be happy by having all of these babies, moving into the suburbs, 2 cars, beautiful appliances, whatever. And I feel empty. I don't exist. I feel like crying. I have no reason. I tried everything women are supposed to do: hobbies, gardening, pickling, canning. That sounds like a good time to me. Being very social with all my neighbors, joining committees, no. Running PT, no. I wanted to get married and have 4 children. I love the kids and Bob in my home. Of course, the name is Bob. There's no problem. You can even put a name to, but I'm desperate. I begin to feel I have no personality. I'm a server of food and a putter on of pants and a bed maker. Somebody who can be called on when you want something, but who am I? Yeah. So that's when you end up with like Betty Draper malaise, where you have all of these the priority on being a great hostess, and you have a bunch of women who are taking Valium and kind of very unhappy in the suburbs at this time. And then you have second wave feminism and a really nice backlash against that in the 80s. You can look at these on your own. This is just sort of some of the writing at the time, or sort of advertising at the time. Just so happy with these cleaning products. Oh my gosh. No wonder Mrs. Norris needs a malt at the end of the day, right? Is she going to get one, or is she just serving one? So here she's in black and white when she's on her own, but then she brings everything to color with pearls. And at the end of the day, wife and mother, homemaker and hostess, this taxing face makes malt in some form so vital to her daily diet. So this is advertising. We have all kinds of advertising and stuff like this. It's very similar, but it's like mommy wine, right? Oh my God, my kids drive me crazy. I need a glass of mommy wine at the end of the day. This is great. If you can watch this, this is an old feminist advertising critique show called Target Women. And this is about how women love cleaning products. And then this is one of those KFC commercials that's about buy KFC to give mom a night off, right? Second wave feminism, what am I building to? Okay, So second wave feminism, here we have protests of the Miss America pageant, the Freedom Trash Can where people were throwing bras and other things, consciousness raising groups in the 60s, talking about their experiences. Okay, let's talk about Davis's. So I'm trying to tell you a little bit of a familiar story about second wave feminism and its relationship to housework, and the essential need really to do something about where that work goes, who does it, and how it plays a strong role in women's marginalization. And we can change that now. We can talk about the feminization of poverty and how that relates to caring labor. We can talk about caregiving and problems around paid childcare and who can afford it and whatever. So these are what I think are the essential nuggets of critique that show that this story is partial to a white middle class feminism. So Davis, second wave feminism focused on getting middle class women employed outside of the home. That, this backswing into the home, then somehow what's going to be liberating then would be to get outside of the home. Black women were already working outside of the home and did not find that particularly liberating. So the idea is that this form of feminism just reinscribed further capitalist labor. Now, to have a middle class home, you basically do have to have a double income, whatever it means to be middle class. And then we can zoom out and talk about bigger problems around global networks of care, global care chains. Davis, finding white middle class women employment outside of the home was made possible by the underpaid domestic labor of Black women. I mean, even if you go back to the Mad Men example, Betty Draper had a Black woman who came into the home every single day and did all of her cleaning for her and whatever, and that was also a status symbol. And so, that work has to go somewhere. Leaves in place the nature of housework. Yeah, so if we leave the home to go do paid labor, there is still this problem of the invisible, repetitive, exhausting, and unproductive and uncreative work. And part of what Davis is pushing back against is this idea that somehow like Black women really like this work, are really suited towards it. These are all sort of myths and stereotypes arriving from, legacies of slavery. And so it's really important to her to not elevate this, to say what it really is. It is invisible, repetitive, exhausting, unproductive, and uncreative. Leaves in place the individualizing nature of housework and childcare. So if we pay people to do it in our homes, it's still an individual thing that needs to be done, and childcare, and that these things should be socialized. Whether that's through like communal homes, like I was talking about, sort of historical feminism. Margaret Dunmore, I think, is the person I'm referring to there, but lots of people have come up with that. So you still keep the structure in place if you just pay someone to come in and do that. What we need is a sort of re-envisioning of how we live, how we make value, and how we reproduce daily life. Second wave feminism just doubled women's work, gave birth to the double day of paid and unpaid work. And yeah, so these are the bigger critiques that I wanted to sort of like use as a launch pad into the Davis piece and, our unit on critical race theory. Okay.